Good morning, everybody. Welcome to March 20th. And again, we're going to continue our series on taxes in Canada and what's your side hustle. We talked about a side hustle in another brief short, but what we want to do now is how do we record our expenses and our revenues for our side hustle to file our taxes, because that is what we do in Canada. We love taxes. Okay, so I've attempted this a couple of times. Revenue Canada won't let me share their website on YouTube. So what I've done is I've downloaded the materials because this is a really important topic and everyone's asking me about it, especially during these times of tariffs. So I'm going to try to share my screen and I'm hoping that the forms come through. Okay, here we go. Did we get it to work? I hope everybody can see that. It says studio.youtube.com is sharing a video. Thank goodness, finally. So this would be the guide for the self-employment business professional commission, farming, and fishing income. I shared recently with you the Form 776 that was for rental income. And the rental income, remember, it included crop sharing as rental income, not farming income. So just a note to self. This is the guide. It's 112 pages. It's really important. It has a lot of important information, and step by step, it makes it very, very easy for you to fill out the business schedule, which is called the Form T2125. One thing I always like to educate my people on that are learning taxes, or our people, this is the guide T4002 REV 24. Make sure you're using the most recent guide. If you are not, you can run into a lot of problems. And if you're unsure, phone Canada Revenue Agency and say, look, this guide says it's 2022. Is that the most recent guide, or is there a 2024 guide? Typically, every year we'll get a new guide. And this tells us everything. Find out if this guide is for you. This guide is for a sole proprietor, unincorporated, self-employed individual who is any or all of the following: a business person, professional, commercial salesperson. And a commercial salesperson in this case is different from an employee who earns commission. Okay, you might be a salaried employee and you earn a partial commission. This is strictly for someone who is totally commission sales. Okay, they don't get a base salary. If you have a daycare in your home, farmer, fisherman. If you're a member of a partnership who's a business person, a partnership who is a professional, okay, and a farming or fishing partnership. So this is the guide that we are going to be using. What I'd like to do is, the easiest way to get through this is to go through the 2025, the actual business schedule. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to switch to the other screen. Here we go. This is the actual business form. And you can see this is a PDF fillable form. I completed this ahead of time to save time because everyone's time is valuable and we don't want to spend a lot of time, going through things. We all have a span of about 15 minutes, okay? So once again, you can download this. It's fillable. You can clear the data. If you don't like, if you make a mistake, you have to redo. I just want to check again, is this the correct form? Yes, it's a T2125 E24. So the first thing is your name. I've used my name here, your social insurance number. Now you must have your social insurance number or it will get rejected. What you want to do here is this form, just so that you understand how it works. If you're using tax software like TurboTax, or I'm not promoting any tax software, okay, or you file any of those ones that are endorsed by Canada Revenue Agency, you can check on their website. They're encrypted. This form, this business schedule integrates within the T1 program, which is your personal tax return. T1 means personal tax return, the entire thing. The T2125 is you fill it out, it's incorporated in there, all the numbers carry through for you. Now, generally, if your income is below a certain level, the software is free. But if you have a business schedule, and whether it's this T2125 or the rental schedule, the T776, they likely are going to charge you a fee. The fee's worth it. It's usually not that expensive. It might be, I don't know, $25 to $50 with taxes. And I think you're allowed to do at least 2 returns, maybe more, maybe up to 5. So you can research and just check the Revenue Canada website to make sure they're encrypted, that it's safe and, endorsed by them. So I use my name, my social insurance number. What's my business name? I'm a sole proprietor, so my business name is Shelley R. Bevs. I'm a chartered professional accountant, a chartered accountant, and a certified Aboriginal financial manager. I've just made up a business number here. And the business number, just so you're aware, the business number alone is your business. Now, if it was a payroll account, it would be RP000. If it was a GST account, it would have an RT0001 on it. If it was a corporate account, which this is not, a corporate account means a corporation, not a proprietorship. It would be RC0001. Now, if in your corporation you're filing T4s, T5s, then it would have an RZ account 0001. Okay, it's important to have an understanding of all these numbers, because all of a sudden you might get these requests from Revenue Canada and you might think, RP, what in the heck are they talking about? Oh, RP, payroll. I forgot to file my T4s. That's what they're talking about. So this is for the proprietorship. This is what it is. My address, a fake address, Carinius, British Columbia. The postal code, make sure the postal code's right. It could get e-file directed. Now, because you're a proprietor or partner, you follow the calendar year. It's January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, 12-month. Okay, you follow the fiscal calendar. With a corporation, as you know, probably you can choose your calendar year end. Was this your last year of business? No, it's not my last year of business. And why is that important? Well, if you decide you're winding your business up or you've sold it, you want to specify it's your last year of business, because you'll have to dispose of assets and you'll have all these tax implications. So what is my main product or service? Well, I'm a CPA, so accounting, finance, tax services. Education. What is the industry code? The industry code is your NAICS code. The NAICS code, if you have software, it will pop up for accounting or finance or farming or other services, or you can Google it and look it up online. Okay, it's always there, and you do need that, or you won't be able to e-file your tax return. The accounting method. Okay, are you doing cash basis? Are you doing accrual? In Canada, we're required to do accrual basis always, unless we are farmers or fishermen. Okay. Tax shelter identification numbers. I'm not going to get into this. This is beyond the scope of this course. A tax shelter is unique. It's assigned by Revenue Canada. It's generally considered high risk. Okay, so I'm not going to get into that for educational purposes. This is for the average person with a small business. Now, if you were a partner, you'd put your partnership percentage there. And then the name and address of the person preparing the form. Well, I'm preparing it myself. If you're preparing it yourself, you would put your name there. If you're CPA or you have a tax preparer that's preparing it, you would put their name. Okay. Now it wants to know about internet business activities. Okay. It wants to know, are you running an internet business? Are you using Shopify? Are you selling your product on Shopify? What does your business earn? Zero if none. Typically, you should be able to get a printout from that, that you can enter the numbers in here. They also want to know your websites, your web addresses. Okay, this is really important, guys. So just for example, I had an international trading business number in a business with Mexico and Canada. And I never got it off the ground because fires hit, all these sort of emergencies happened in British Columbia in 2017. But I did receive a phone call, and the Revenue Canada said, "Hey, you have an export number. Are you doing any online business? Are you doing this? Are you doing that?" I said, "No, I wish I was." And so they do pay attention to this. So if you have an import export business and you haven't done anything with it, for whatever reason, or you've done something with it, you include all of your information, okay? They can track that. Page 2 of the form. Are you business income, professional income? I filled out the business income section here. I could have filled out the professional income. I largely do right now a lot of education. I'm not doing a lot of public practice work. I'm not licensed. I'm an educator now and a consultant more. So I've chosen to put my income here. So these are fictitious numbers, just so you know. So it says here, gross sales, commissions or fees include GST. So if I made $30,000 worth of income in British Columbia, we aren't under harmonized sales tax. We're under GST only. I would have to have collected 5% GST on that, unless I was on reserve. I am a status Indian, but I'm preparing this off reserve because a lot of people I deal with work off reserve. So my gross income with my GST is 31,500. Now what it wants you to do is deduct the GST. Why? Deduct it because you don't pay tax on GST. Okay, it's a tax that you collect and then you pass it on to the government. Less your GST, ITCs, investment tax credits paid. Okay, so we deduct that out. And this is my income without GST, $30,000. Okay. I could have used the professional income. I didn't. I could have used the business income, Part C3, but I didn't. Okay. Depending on what kind of business you're doing. So $30,000, we're going to go to the next page. Okay. What about expenses? What about direct expenses versus what I call soft costs, operating expenses? So before I can do anything, I must have my insurance. And to me, that is a direct cost. It's not inventory. It's not that sort of thing, but it's a direct cost. I prefer to have my direct costs up above because I want to see before I even start practicing what are my costs. So no matter what, I have to pay $1,500. Okay. I have to pay licensing and my membership dues of 2,500. And I might hire someone part-time to do data admin for me. And those are the direct costs to get me going. So before I even open the doors of my business, I'm going to pay $5,000. And that's why I want that there, because I want to know after my direct costs, what are my gross profit? So even if I budget and I make 30,000 right off the bat, I have to pay 5,000 no matter what. So I'm at 25,000. So then from my 25,000, what are my expenses? Okay, advertising. People are always going to ask you to advertise, and I do. Like if it's a baseball team, I put a business card in. I choose one. I really believe in youth and sports. I might put one in the university catalog of candidates coming out. You know, maybe I need a part-time student. They've got a summer off and they can do some work for me. You know, You choose where you're advertising. Typically we choose where it makes the most money. I'm small business. I had young people in sports and I found it does a lot of good. So that's typically where I advertise. My interest and bank charges for my business account are $11 a month. I don't do a lot of transactions. Plus, if you have assets and investments on holding, you can negotiate these fees, right? Business licenses and memberships, okay. My membership for BCCPA, I have to pay that. I have to pay $120 for a business license, even if I'm online remote. That's what's required. Okay. Office expenses. Office expenses, I have printer cartridges. I'm 90% or more paperless, but there's still the odd time I'm going to have to print something out. And, for somebody or some forms to fill out, I have to print, I have to do a wet signature, I have to scan it back in. Not everything is DocuSign. And for stationery, all of my equipment is purchased, so it's capital because it's, computer equipment, computer screens, larger sums of money. I spend very little. I might spend 2 boxes of paper per year from Costco. Professional fees, I always budget in legal fees and that because if I'm consulting, my specialty is tax, and I would consult with the lawyer to make sure that if I've written something um, for a law firm or, if I've explained to people this is why you have to do this, I'm covered. So I do always have a law firm because taxes, especially in the status Indian world, are changing rapidly. Rent, I have a little office. It's very small, might be 300 square feet. It's totally separate from the rest of my house. It has its own meter, electric meter, everything. And really, the only thing I have to pay is the electricity bill. And that would be my rent on that office. And so I've chosen to put it under rent. I suppose I could put it under utilities, but to me, it is a rent cost. Maintenance, repairs and maintenance, I may have to do some small repairs, a light switch or something in that office. Maybe I have to fix a hole in the wall, maybe replace a new lock. I budget very little. I may eventually have to spend more on maintenance, but right now it's in pretty good shape. Travel, I do certain travel if I have to go to a university to teach, or if I have to, things are outside my separate scope of my work. My office is in my home. I might have a little bit of fuel costs. I may have to go and courier documents to people depending on where I am in the world. And it's a small cost, but I do budget it. Fuel costs, except for motor vehicles. If I was a landscaping business or something, I suppose I would have those kind of costs. I don't. I do have a lot of delivery and freight costs as well. So that on top of my fuel costs to travel to certain points, most of my costs in freight are delivery, couriering packages. And as we know, Redney Canada is getting very expensive. So as I add up all of my expenses, they come to 7,065. I take the 25,000 less that. So what I made all year is 17,935. Now, this is important. I want you to pay attention to these numbers here for budgeting and for your income taxes. Everyone says, oh, a budget, it's so difficult. I'm going to say that the best thing you can do is plan and budget. There's never enough time to do that. And the simplest way is if you're more about taxes, you're a small business, I would pull the forms from the Canada Revenue site. I would set up an Excel sheet, whether it's in Google, whether it's in Microsoft, whatever your choice is, whether it's something else or whether you want to use software like QuickBooks or Intuit, whatever is out there. And this is what I would do. And this is really important because you want to make sure you're consistently allocating the expenses to the same place every year. Because if you don't and all of a sudden you have big swings, well, that could be a red flag for an audit. The other thing is it helps you look, okay, this is where I started, and maybe this is where I want to be in 5 years. And these are the categories. So what am I going to do to increase my revenues, minimize my costs? I know no matter what, I have direct costs on 5,000. I'm never going to get around that. So I really want to increase my revenues because my fixed costs, they're more controllable. I may or may not spend them, and I'd like to make more revenue than $17,000 a year. So here we come, our net income. We're not journalists or that, or I'm not. So we're not, I haven't touched on journalists. If somebody wants me to, and if they want to message me, by all means, I'll do that. It's changed a lot, and there's tax credits out there. Here's business use of home expenses. We're going to go down and check that. I didn't have that because I have a whole separate office. But let's go down and see how we can claim a portion of our business use of our home expenses. Um, so for example, my heating in my house is $1,200, my electricity is $720, insurance is high. I live in the country or rural. It's very, very high maintenance, whether I'm snow plowing the roads, whether it's fire season or a flood season. I have to dig ditches, or I have to do some ditching around my property. I have to keep it clean and accessible, and I want to keep the growth down because fires and those sorts of things. I live in that rural country. I don't live in a city where everything's all taken care of. And then all my property taxes, because I live in a rural community, they're very, very low. Community association fees, I'm putting this in because I have to be part of my community association fees because we make decisions on our sewer and water systems, and we do have community systems. We're not using septic in that. We've actually saved up enough money in the community I was in, and then we meet as a group and we make those decisions. So I have put that in there. So my total expenses for my home are $8,940. Now, what about the personal portion? Well, I have a little one-bedroom suite on my building, and when I take the total square footage, for example, say the total square footage of the business is 1,000 square feet, and 200 square feet is for my suite attached, my personal expenses. They actually prorate it, so it's very simple. So 200 square feet divided into 1,000 is 20%. So I've taken 20% of the 8,940 to deduct because that's personal and I can't claim that for a business, okay? So my actual business office use expenses are 7,152. All right. Now we get into capital cost allowances. Remember, we were talking about what's a current expense and what's a capital expenditure. So let's go down to that schedule. A capital expenditure is something that extends the life of the asset. In this case, I bought the business. I bought the business for $140,000. Okay. And then I had to put in a heating system because it only had a wood stove. So I had to put in heating and air conditioning. Otherwise, it's just way too stuffy. Now we have two different classes in the guide. Class 1 is for buildings, class 8 is for equipment. All right. But what I also want to show you before we go on any further with that is land. The land portion of the expense of the building that I purchased is $40,000. You have to track that separately. You cannot claim capital cost allowance on land. So you can track it, you put it down here on line 9923, okay, in case you ever sell the property, all right? Then we go up. So I bought the building this year, 100,000. Is there a personal part? I did not put a personal part in this building. Technically, I suppose I should have put 20,000, but for ease of calculation, we're just going to go 100,000 was for the building. And how do I know that? Well, I take a look at the notice of assessment or the appraisal. Revenue Canada does allow us to use the notice of assessment, and the notice of assessment, your property assessment for taxes, will tell you the land value that you're paying taxes on, and it will tell you the building structures on there, okay? Now, class 8 is 25,000 for my heating and my air conditioning. Now, where do I get these classes from? In that guide I showed you, the guide T4002, it talks about classes, and it will tell you which class you should put where. A building is class 1, heat air conditioning system would be class 8. So here we go, class 1 and class 8, cost of additions during the year. Here they are. We flow all the way through to here. Now it says here, adjustment for current year additions subject to the half-year rule. When you buy assets, the first year you're only allowed to claim 50% of the capital cost allowance. Capital cost allowance is the tax equivalent for depreciation. So we basically divide the 100,000 into 2 and the 25,000 into 2. So here's our base amount for calculating the capital cost allowance, the portion we are allowed to deduct for tax purposes. We're not allowed to deduct 100%. We have to base it on Revenue Canada guidelines. So 50,000 times 4% for the building is 2,000. 12,500 times 20% for the new heating cooling equipment I put in was 3,125. So then what we do is we get a total that we can deduct, 5,125. Then also don't forget, what's the UCC, capital cost balance at the end of the year? It's not 50,000 minus 2,000, it's 100,000. It's the original cost we paid less the 2,000 equals 98,000. This is called, we take capital cost allowance on a declining balance basis, okay? So 5,125. So up here on line 7K, we have 5,125. So we have our home expenses, the business portion we're allowed to claim. We have our capital cost allowance that we're allowed to claim. The total of that is 12,277. Now all of a sudden our net income is only 5,658. Okay, just a note down here, if you go in a loss position, you can't claim business home expenses to create a loss. Okay, you carry it forward. So you have taxable income of $5,658. Okay, that is your taxable income, and that will carry forward to the front of your jacket. Now, if you had other partners, you would fill that in there. Say it's your husband and wife, you could put your other partner as the spouse, okay? And when you prepare your tax returns, the software will allow you to share schedules. It'll automatically couple, we call it coupling the return, so that you don't have to enter it twice into both schedules, okay? Now, what Revenue Canada also wants to know is they want to know, what are your total business liabilities? What did you draw in a year? And what were your capital contributions in a year? Okay, so you're gonna want to keep track of that. So you're gonna say, well, you know, I didn't get a mortgage, so I made 140,000 in capital contributions to buy the building. All right, what did I draw out? They want to know. Just so you're aware, whatever you draw out, you are not taxed on. You are taxed on your bottom line. You draw out whatever you draw out. That's tax-free if that puts you into an overdraft, if you have a line of credit. And then they want to know your total business liabilities at the end of the year. Okay? That's it, everybody. That is T2125 Business Schedule. I hope that helped you. Now, you have until June 15th, once again, to file this of this year. However, let me warn you, if you owe taxes, you'll be paying interest as of April 30th. April 30th is the normal time for year-end filing of taxes if you don't have a business. For small business, we're allowed till June 15th. but if we owe taxes, we will pay interest. I do not like to pay the government anything. If I'm going to pay interest, I'm going to pay it to myself. So I make sure I make installments, even if I'm not sure what the end of the year is going to be. And that way, if I make installments by April 30th and I have to pay taxes in June, I hope that my installments that I've made are more than my taxes owing so that I don't have to pay interest. I hope you've enjoyed this. We're going to continue on personal taxes a little longer because, as everyone knows, the deadline is April 30th. I've got some requests on some special topics that I'll bring up once a week as I'm doing. And please like and share. I'm doing this educational. I enjoy teaching. I'm doing this for no cost. And I do want to help people. And I think that it should be easy to do taxes. And I think that at least if you're informed and you're prepared and you go in to your professional to prepare your taxes, you can save yourselves money. It should not be so difficult in Canada to do taxes. So everyone, have a great day. Thanks. I appreciate it when you guys like and share. And I really appreciate it when you request topics. Bye-bye.